Okay, going to be working the homework for 7-6, graphs of sine and cosine. So this first problem is asking us to determine the amplitude and period of the following function without graphing it. So when we're looking at this, y equals 7 sine of x, the amplitude will always be the absolute value of this number. Okay, so our amplitude will be the absolute value of 7, which is just 7. And then the period, we get that by looking at the number in front of x here, which is 1. And so to find the period, I'm just call it p, we always take 2 pi and divide it by that number in front of the x, which is 1. So we just get 2 pi. All right. So the amplitude is 7. And the period is 2 pi. Okay. Next question. Okay, for this one, I'm just going to look at it. The amplitude is the absolute value of -8, which would be 8. And then for the period, we're just going to take the 8, or we'll take 2 pi and we'll divide it by the number in front of x here, which is 8, and then reduce this fraction out. And we're just going to get pi over 4. So here we've got pi over 4. Oops, over 4. All right, for this one, the amplitude, we take the absolute value of this number in front. So it's just 6 over 7. And then for the period, again, I've got to take 2 pi and divide it by the number in front of the x, which is a 7 over 6. So that's the same as taking 2 pi and multiplying it by the reciprocal. And then just look at 2 pi as being 2 pi over 1 and just multiply straight across. You get 12 pi and then over the bottom, which is 1 times 7, which is 7. So we're going to have a fraction here. We're going to have 12 pi over 7. There we go. All right, same old, same old. Okay, amplitude here, 7/5. And then for the next part, the period, I'm going to need 2 pi divided by -2 pi over 5, which is the same as 2 pi times the reciprocal, so 5 over -2 pi. And I look at that as a fraction, so I'll just go straight across. And notice that we can just cancel out the 2 pi's completely. I'll still have a negative on the bottom. So where we go? Where's this thing? Hitting the wrong button. So we'll get -5 there. Let's see how it handles this. Okay. Well, once the period, we know that it's 5 units. It's -5 because it goes to the left of the y-axis. So they just want to know how long that is, how long the period is. So we just go with 5. All right, I see what they want here. Okay, so now graph the following function, show at least 2 cycles. So for this one, let's just look at what it is. Let's see. We have an amplitude of 1 because the number in front there is 1. And then the period, we're going to do 2 pi divided by -2, which is going to give us just -pi. So we're just going to say the period is pi. So I didn't really cover this in class. I'm actually surprised that this is the first problem that they want us to graph. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to use this period. Let me see here. I'll draw it on here. So the period is -pi. So -pi is here. And then what we'll do is we'll do halfway between that and 0, which is -pi over 2. And then halfway there is -pi over 4. And then that means this is going to be -3 pi over 4, like that. We know it's a sine function, so it starts here, ends here, and in the middle we have 0. And then we know that it goes up and then down. So it'll look like this. Okay, so let's see if we can't graph that and see how this works. I've never used this thing. So we want this. Okay, now, whoa. Okay, here we go. Amplitude. Oh, I like this. The amplitude is 1. The period, we need the period to be negative pi. There's negative pi right there. That's not a very convenient. Oh. What? Well, we'll make the period pi, and then we'll reflect it about the y-axis. But this is weird. What? I don't get this at all. See, vertical shift. Sorry, it's my first time using this. Period. Let me just put pi in here. What happens if I put negative pi in here? Oh, it won't. Okay, so it wants the period as a positive number. Reflection about the phase shift. Okay, phase shift is 0. Sorry, I thought that was different. Okay, I messed that up. There we go. Okay, so the period is pi. Now, here's the thing. We can't put negative pi in here because the system won't take it. So what we need to realize is that when you have a negative in front of that number, like in front of the 2, it's going to be a reflection over the y-axis. All right, let's go with that. Let's check that. Okay. Hopefully we'll get another example of that because that was messed up. Okay, use a graph to determine the domain. So the domain is everything. Let's see, type interval notation. So I'm going to go with negative infinity to infinity. Let's see if it takes that. Yeah. And then the range is going to go from -1 to 1. So -1, 1. There we go. All right, now that's kind of weird. Let's see how this one goes. Okay, so we have -1/5 cosine 5x. So I'm going to just start putting this together. I know that the amplitude is 1/5. That's the absolute value. So I know that my graph is going to go 1/5 here, -1/5 here. Okay, my period, I'm going to take 2 pi and divide it by the number in front of x, which is 5. So that's just 2 pi over 5. So this is going to be 2 pi over 5, and then I have my points. Now, I'll do that a little bit more in a second. Let me see if I can't just do it this way. So I want a cosine curve this time, so it's cosine. I'm just going to place it here. My amplitude is 1/5. Okay, my period is 2 pi over 5. And I have a reflection about the x-axis because it got the negative in front reflected it. So it should take that. Now I'm going to save that. I'm not going to put it in. I'm going to just show you how I graph it over here. So here, what we have to do is we have to find the middle point here. So the middle point, I'm going to take 0 and add 2 pi over 5 and divide by 2. And if you do that, you get 2 pi over 10, which is pi over 5. If I do this one, I'm going to get pi over 10. I'm not going to show that. And then those other two, 3 pi over 10. I should get 3 pi over 10 here. Yeah, okay, that should be it. And then now it's a cosine function. So it normally would start here, end here, go down here, and then have my x-intercepts, but it's been flipped over because of the negative that's in front. So it's actually going to start here like this, that, whoop, that, and like that. All right, so let's see, is that kind of what I have here? You can kind of see it goes down and up, down. Yeah, let's try this answer. Okay. It's more important that you know how to do this by hand because that's what you'll be doing on the test. All right, so domain is everything again. Negative infinity to infinity. And the range, this time, the range is not -1 to 1, it's -1/4, because that's the y value that comes out, to +1/4. That's the biggest we get. So, wait a minute. Oh, 1/5. Sorry, I wrote the wrong number there. I don't know where I got the 4 from. -1/5 to 1/5. All right. Okay, so this, we did not talk about this. This is no good. All right, this is no good. All right, we're gonna do it anyway. So what we have here is an amplitude of 2. We have our period. What we do is we take 2 pi and divide it by pi/4, which is the same as 2 pi times the reciprocal 4/pi. Pi's cancel, and we just get 8. So we have a period of 8. And then we have this number that's all here by itself, outside of everything, -2. This is going to be a vertical, that's up and down shift. And basically it moves the entire graph down 2. So it's pretty simple. If you have a number out here, it just moves it up or down, depending on the sign. So let's see how we can do that with using this system here. So it is a cosine function. Okay. Now the amplitude here is 2. The period is 8. We have a vertical shift. We moved it down 2 right there. And it was not reflected. So that should be it right there. And save that. Check the answer. There we go. We got it. So now here's our graph. Now, if I were doing this by hand, I would do period is 8. And this one's easy because half of that's 4, half of that's 2, and half of that's 6. And then it has an amplitude of 2, and then -2. And it's a regular old cosine function, so it should start here and then go down, down, back up like that. That's what it should look like. However, the whole thing gets shifted down 2. So every point moves down 2. So that point moves to here. That point moves down 2. This point moves down 2. That point moves down 2. And that point here moves down 2 to here. Oh, sorry. I moved that one in the wrong place. I moved down 2, not 4. It moved to here. So it should be like this. Yeah, that first jump down here, that's 2 units down. I went 4 for some reason. So that should be this here. All right, now in looking at this, we can answer the next parts. Continue. Okay, domain. So we still have -infinity to infinity. Oops. -infinity to infinity. But the range is going to be a little bit different here. Notice that the smallest value I get is -4, and the biggest value I get is 0. So our range should go from -4 to 0. That's because we moved everything down. All right, so this one is a little tricky. What I'll do first is I'm going to rewrite the problem. I'm going to just reorder things here. So what I did is I decided to put that 4 in the back and move this out to the front. And that way we could see from here the amplitude is 2. Let's see, it's going to be flipped over the x-axis because we have a negative in front of that 2. The period is going to be 2 pi over the number in front of x, which is 3. And then it's going to be shifted up 4 because we have the +4 back here. So let's go ahead and do that in here. It is a cosine function. Amplitude is 2. The period is 2 pi over 3. The vertical shift, it went up by 4. The whole thing went up 4. And yeah, no phase shift. We haven't done phase shift yet, but we reflect this over the x-axis also. So that should be it there. Well, hold on. What did I mess up? Let me go back to that. Make sure I put everything in right there. Amplitude is 2. It's a cosine function. Period is 2 pi over 3. Oh, I moved it down 4. Oops. Up 4. I don't know why I put down 4. Weirdo. Okay, sorry, that's just my fault. For some reason, I was thinking of the last problem, I guess. Okay, so moved it up 4 instead of down 4. Okay, so our domain should be everything again. That's always going to be the case with sine and cosine. Okay, but the range is going to be where we start here and the y value is 2 and it goes up to 6. So we go 2, 6 with brackets. That's it. All right. Okay, so for this one, let's see if we can do this all without having to, well, we might have to write a little bit of stuff down here. So this is a sine function. Here we go, sine. The amplitude is 5/7. The period, here I'll have to do that over here. The period is going to be 2 pi over negative 2 pi over 7. So that's the same as 2 pi times 7 over negative 2 pi. And so cancel. We still have a negative on bottom, so we have -7. So the way we're going to look at this is that the period is going to be 7, but then we're going to have a flip it over the y-axis because of the negative in front of it. Let me get back to this. Okay, so period is 7. And this thing did not move up or down, but we did get reflected over the y-axis. Okay, that looks like it's right. Period was 7 now with the reflection. Save that, check that. Okay, good. Now, continue. Okay, domain should be everything. Okay, now the range is going to be a little bit harder to see. All right, so let's see here. We have to remember we didn't move this thing up or down, and the amplitude was 5/7. So that means it should be, the lowest point should be -5/7 and the highest should be +5/7. So -5/7, comma, +5/7. Close it with a bracket. All right. Okay, on this one, let's do the work first. All right, so we have an amplitude of 1/2, but we are going to flip it over the x-axis because the negative in front of the 1/2. The period, we're going to do 2 pi divided by pi over 4, which is the same as times 4 over pi. The pi's cancel and we just get 8. And then we have a vertical shift of up 5 over 2. That's because of the +5 halves here. Let's get that all in here. It's a sine function. We have an amplitude of 1/2. We have a period of 8. We have flipping over the x-axis. And we have a vertical shift of 5 halves. Went up by 5 halves. Check that. All right. Let me make this bigger. All right, so here's the tricky part of this problem. The domain, that'll be easy. -∞, comma to infinity. But on the range, okay, so on the range, here's what we need to do. We need to remember that originally the amplitude was 1/2, right? So originally, before we moved anything around, we knew it went from -1/2 to 1/2, right? That's what the amplitude was. but we move the whole thing up 5/2. So what we need to do is take those two numbers and add to it 5/2. And that will, let me see, 5/2. And take 5/2 and add a half, that's 6/2, that's 3. And then I do 5/2, add a negative, which is same as subtraction. So 5/2 minus a half would be 4/2, that's 2. So our range now goes from 2 to 3 instead of from -1/2 to 1/2. Okay, so we get 2 to 3. That. Okay, clear. All right, write the equation of a sine function with amplitude 7 and period of 4 pi. Okay, so now you have to kind of think backwards. All right, so we have y equals, okay, we need a period of 7. So 7, and we need it to be a sine function, sine. And then we need the period, we need a number in front of x, we need the period to be 4 pi. So remember, the period is equal to 2 pi over the number in front of x. But we want that period to be 4 pi. So that must be 2 times this over this. And we're going to try and solve for omega or for w. So I'm going to multiply both sides by w to get it out of the fraction. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4 pi to get the w by itself. The pi's cancel and I just get a half. So I just need a half in front of that. And that should do it. So there are 2 equations. There's 1 equation. Okay, let's go with this. I hope they're not having us look at that right now. 7 sine of 1 divided by 2x. Do they really want us to put in 2 answers? I really don't like this homework assignment. Yeah, that's what I thought they were going to ask. Okay, I'm not going to ask you something like this to give me 2 answers. Just 1 answer would be okay here. So just ignore the fact that they want 2. I think that's a little beyond what we need to do. So for this one, we want sine function amplitude 8. So we have amplitude 8. It's a sine function, so 8 sine, and then we need some number in front of x. We need the period to be 7. So we need 7 to be equal to 2 pi over omega. Multiply both sides by omega. Divide both sides by 7. So we need the number in front there to be 2 pi over 7. So there are going to be, again, 2 answers on this one. I'm just going to put the wrong answer and then do it again. See, so they want 2 answers, but you can see one of those is ours, this one right here. Okay, that's all that matters. All right, find the equation of the graph below. Find the equation of the graph in form sine or cosine. So to me, I look at this. Oh, that didn't get much bigger. Let's see if, okay, here we go. So this is looking like a sine function, right? And it looks like the amplitude is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like 6 here and -6 here, right? So it looks like we're going to have 6 for our amplitude. It looks like a sine curve because it goes up and then down, right? We've got the 3x intercepts. And so I need to know this point right here. That looks like 7, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's 7. So the period is 7. So 7 must equal 2 pi over omega. Multiply both sides by omega and divide by 7, 2 pi over 7. So we get 2 pi over 7 in front of x. That should be it. Oh, I have to close this. Okay, so it's 6 sine of 2 pi over 7x. All right, took it. Good. Okay, clear this out. Let's take a look at this one. Looking like a cosine because we're starting here at the top, ending here. Looks like our period's 4 pi. And it looks like my amplitude is 1. Looks like that's a 2 because 3 is up here. So we're going to have a 2, we're going to have a cosine, and then I need the number in front of x. So my period is 4 pi, so my period has to be equal to 2 pi over omega. Multiply both sides by omega. Divide by 4 pi. We did that computation earlier. That's a half. So we should have a half in front here, and then x. Okay, so 2 cosine of 1 over 2 x. All right, guess I'm done, huh? See, it's letting me do similar questions here. I don't know, maybe on some problems it doesn't. All right, I'm done.